stars of track and field you are. The stars of track and field you are. The stars of track and field are beautiful people.
Welcome everyone to a special edition of Let'sRun.com's Track Talk. Let'sRun.com founder Weldon Johnson, joined by crack staff writer Jonathan Galt for what we're calling a preview of Super Sunday, where it's a bit remote, but conceivably all 4 world records in the half marathon, men's and women's half and men's and women full world records could fall at the Berlin Marathon and the Copenhagen Half Marathon. John, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Weldon. I just want to begin with a question. Have we ever not had a special edition of the Track Talk podcast? I feel like every time we introduce this thing, it's a special edition for some reason or another.
That's the beauty, John, of not having a set schedule. Every edition is special. This one, actually, we're not broadcasting live, which might be a special thing, and I'm broadcasting from a co-working space, so I'm trying not to yell too much, but with our new mics, hopefully the audio is great. Copenhagen's going to be great, and that race is actually after Berlin. It'll start actually right when Berlin's finishing. It's at 11:15 European time, but you know the main attention is going to be on Berlin. So let's start there, John. You know, we got exclusive news breaking late today that Chernish Dibaba may be targeting Paula Radcliffe's world record, but we can get to that in a second. If Eliud Kipchoge is in the race, the focus is on him, and Eliud Kipchoge is in this race. And what does that mean to you, John?
It just means it's a special occasion. I mean, this guy is the greatest marathoner we've ever seen. I feel like more and more you get a sense that there's an aura around this guy, that people view him differently. I mean, there was a promotional video that came out, I think NN Running, which is one of his sponsors, posted on Twitter. It's got Kipchoge just sort of doing some, pretty basic training stuff at his training base in Kattegat, but they've got this dramatic music playing in the background. They've got him, he spreads his peanut butter onto a piece of bread with a spoon, and people, I'm just like, people are probably freaking out about this. They're like, oh wait, maybe I need to start doing this. I mean, I feel like he's taken on this like epic place in the running universe right now. And I think what I hope would happen, and I don't know if this is actually happening, but I feel like this is a guy who mainstream sports fans can maybe start appreciating just how brilliant he is. He's won 8 straight marathons. He's won 9 of 10. And then that doesn't even count his 2 hours, 25 second, 26.2 mile, whatever you want to call it, race marketing event in Monza last year. I mean, the guy's accomplishments are legendary, and I just saw today the New York Times has a story on him asking if he's the greatest runner ever, and I think that's one of the interesting things to me actually is like, if he continues on this path for a few more years, when do we stop having the greatest marathoner ever discussion about Kipchoge, and when does it just become greatest runner ever, period? Because he doesn't quite have the track credentials to stack up against Bekele or Gebrselassie, but I mean, he did beat Bekele in 2003 Worlds, so he is a world champion on the track. But when does the magnitude of what he's accomplished on the roads just sort of outweigh everything else on the track? And maybe this is a discussion for another day, but that to me is interesting, is like, even if he's already the best marathoner ever. I think most people admit this, though there's a bit of an argument on the Let's Run message boards at the moment. Of course there is. But yeah, how long can he keep doing this? He's 33 years old, turns 34, I think, in a month or two. And we've never seen someone stay on top this long in the marathon. So every time he wins, it's just more history. But yeah, I mean, how long do you think he can keep it going, Weldon?
Well, it's crazy that he's only 33 because, he's been on top or at the top since 2003 Worlds, and we've seen him there, so we know he's been there for 15 years, and he beat El Garouche and Bekele in that one, right? I mean, it's pretty amazing. He shows no signs of slowing down, so even if his age is off a couple years, Wilson Kipsang's older than him, and he's still doing pretty well. So, I think Tokyo 2020 is something that's getting closer, every day, and it's less than 2 years out. So I think for sure he can still be, near the top of his game then. And you talk to his agent, and it sounds like from everything coming out of their camp, they say he's getting better, week in, week out. That he's not a lesser version of what he was a year ago, 2 years ago, which is simply amazing.
Yeah, I mean, and that one, you always got to sort of take that. I mean, Valentine Trout, his agent, has always been pretty forthcoming and honest with me, but you always have to take that sort of with a grain of salt, just because we only get to see this guy test his fitness twice a year, so it's kind of hard to tell, like, what, and especially like the different conditions. He ran 2:03:32 last year in the rain in Berlin. How is that? What is that worth compared to, his 2:04 in London this year in the heat, when he went out, in 4:22 for the first mile and 13:48 for the first 5K, and 61 flat. And then what is that worth compared to his 2 hours 25 and this, crazy illegal pacing, drafting formation that he ran in Monza? I mean, is which one is superior? It's kind of impossible to say, right? So, but what we do know is this guy keeps winning. He's had some competition, at least in his last 2 marathons. Gallardo was leading with inside the final 5 kilometers in Berlin last year, and Shura Katata gave him a run for his money in London this year before Kipchoge dropped him late in the race. So people have, at least his last couple of races, there have been people close to him, but he's still the question number one. And I think the big question this weekend is, does he get the world record? I mean, I feel like there isn't a lot of deserve in our sport. It's sort of just who comes out and does it on the day. That's the results are what they say they are. But I think a lot of people sort of feel, with all that he's accomplished in the marathon, and just how consistently brilliant he's been, that Kipchoge kind of deserves this record. And it would be kind of a shame, like the guy who holds it right now is Dennis Comedo, and Dennis Comedo ran a couple of great marathons in his career. He has the course record in Chicago, he has the world record in Berlin, but his resume pales in comparison to Kipchoge. And for Comedo to be the world record holder when you've had just this amazing career like Kipchoge, it feels a little weird.
Yeah, I think if the end result on Sunday is Kipchoge wins in 2:03:40, I think a lot of people will just be like, whatever. It's all about getting the 2:02:57, which I don't know if that's unfair to him, or I mean, Wilson Kipsang is also in this race, and we got an email from, I don't know if you know the visitor's name, but he was essentially saying if Kipsang wins this race, he'd have a good argument, or if he breaks the record and wins the race, for being the greatest marathoner of all time. But I think it would be a huge upset for him to beat Kipchoge. Kipchoge, what, 8 in a row are we at now?
Yep.
So, I think let's put it out there. The 2:02:57. What's the weather looking like? Sort of the pacing, I think, is very important. How you go about that record. But I don't know how do you think you should attack it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the weather looks good. First of all, I think earlier in the week it looked like, I think the high is supposed to be 70, but it's not. That's not going to happen until the afternoon. During the race, it's going to be probably between about 58 and 64 or so, which is, it's a little more than ideal, but it's good. Kipchoge is good enough to overcome that, I think, and not a lot of wind. The way I would do it, I mean, I think he wanted to go out in 61 flat in London earlier this year, and they did that despite the weather, like even with it being super hot. I mean, even if it's perfect conditions, if your goal is to break the world record, I don't think you should be going out that fast. I think Kipchoge, could he run 2:02 under perfect conditions at his peak fitness? I think he probably could. I think that his effort in Monza, to me personally, that's the most impressive 26.2 miles he's ever run, and that was probably worth like around 2:02 flat, maybe under. But if you can try and break the world record in Berlin, I mean, I don't know. I would think maybe go out, I wouldn't go out any faster than 61:15. I would think go out a bit ahead of the world record pace if you're feeling good, bank some time. If not, I mean, and also you've got the rabbits with you, so that's easier. Run a little faster with the rabbits, and then if you slow down, you're giving yourself, a cushion there. But I think faster than 61:15, it's just it's such a fine margin what time you end up running, and I feel like you don't want to risk going out too hard. So that's my personal opinion would be go out somewhere between 61:15 and 61:30 and just trust that you're fit enough to hold on the second half.
Yeah, I really hope they get the pacing right. And, the idea of banking time on the world record, all the science suggests that backfires. It doesn't work. That's, you want to be pretty even split or slightly negative split, and they almost never do that when they try to attack it. Mm-hmm. And, London, the pacing's crazy. They need to give guys like better GPS or the stride watches and have them just set right on that pace and not deviate. I think with technology and people allowed to wear, devices like that, there's no reason that they should be off more than, 5 seconds the first mile and go from there.
Yeah. London's funny because it's the first 5Ks downhill, so they all get excited. They're all ready to run fast, and they just end up going super fast. You almost need like a 400-meter runner to pace the pacemakers and just make sure that they don't go crazy, and then have everyone else follow. But you brought up the Kipsang email, which I thought was an interesting one. It was from a visitor called Clay Lloyd, and he was a little upset that we didn't give Kipsang his due in the preview. And first of all, the article I wrote on Kipchoge, it wasn't really a traditional race preview. It was more of like a look at the world record and Kipchoge himself. Our traditional race previews, we look at all the contenders, and that wasn't really the intention of this article. But yeah, his point was like Kipsang's almost as good as Kipchoge. He's like has almost as good a chance to win, and I disagree with that. I just think Kipchoge.
That's crazy.
Yeah, Kipchoge has beaten him the last 3 times. Kipsang did beat him. He's the only person who's ever beaten Kipchoge in a marathon. He beat him in Berlin in 2013. But he's pointing out, like, he's using Tokyo in 2017 as, like, this great reference point of, like, oh, he's really fit and, he could run a really good marathon. It's like, well, yeah, that was, like, 16 months ago, something like that. And that was one race. Since then, he's gone to Berlin. He dropped out. He dropped out of Tokyo earlier this year when he was trying to run fast. He did get second in New York last year, but Kipchoge is just win. And they're almost, they're usually quite fast. He ran 2:03 in Berlin last year in conditions that were not ideal. So, the more interesting question he posed, though, was, do the thought experiment where Kipsang beats Kipchoge this weekend and he breaks the world record. Does Kipsang have a case as the greatest of all time? And I think he does actually have a case. That is true, because right now Kipsang has 5 world marathon major victories. He has 4 sub 204s, which is the most all time. He's a former world record holder. He's got 2:03.13 PB. Well, give him a win in Berlin this weekend in the world record. That means he has 6 world marathon majors wins. It brings his career record against Kipchoge to 2 and 3, which is 2 more victories than everyone else in the entire world. It would give him 5 sub 204s. It make him a multi-time world record holder. To me, that's still not enough to just Kipchoge's run of dominance from 2014 to the present, and his Olympic title, and his, I give him credit for Monza as well. All of that is still better than what Kipsang's accomplished, even if Kipsang gets the world record again. Because I think the world record can just be kind of fluky, right? Like,
yeah,
you need to be in great shape and have good conditions and get it done on that day, But I think it's an interesting case to be made, at least for Kipsang.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Kipsang would get, we're saying that Kipchoge doesn't get a lot of recognition. Kipchoge, he gets some, but Kipsang has almost none. And if he were to beat Kipchoge, and the 2 times he beats him, he breaks the world record, it would be sort of epic, right? Like, Kipchoge would have lost 2 marathons in his life. oh yeah, the guy set the world record. The same guy did in both of them. I mean, it would just sort of be such a great conversation. But you know, Kipsang's 36, as you said. Yeah, I don't know. He was pretty good in the fall last year, but last year even in Berlin, it was really weird. He was just right there. He just stepped off the track,
Yeah, it was
stepped
so
off the
odd. I
road.
still don't understand that.
If you guys weren't watching, he was with the leaders and Kipchoge right there at, was it 25K or
I
30K
think it was
even?
30K.
Yeah, and just they hit the mark and he just stepped aside the track, stopped the road and stopped, and he did come back and get second in New York. So showed he was fit. So I don't know if it was a mental thing or what, but it should be epic. I guess we can we got the women's races and we got these halves to talk about, but we can get to predictions at the end. There's a couple other guys in the field who you think could challenge if things don't go right, or how else do you see this?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Kipchoge or Kipsang runs their best race, they're not losing to one of the other guys. Like the only guy who could beat them is the other one. But you've got three other 205 guys. Eliud Kipchoge from Kenya, he was second to Kipchoge in Berlin in 2015, but he hasn't broken 207 since then. And then you've got two guys who ran PRs earlier this year, Amos Kipruto, who's 205.43, and then Abera Kuma of Ethiopia, who's run 205.50. I mean, those guys, they could be in line for PRs, but I just feel like to say that they would beat Kipchoge or Kipsang, they would. I think something would have to go wrong, most likely.
Yep, that makes sense. And I'm skimming the New York Times piece here by Scott Kakolia. Is that how you say it, John? Basketball writer.
Kakiola. I don't know exactly how it's pronounced. I'm afraid.
That's the problem with these writers. They're never on TV, so you never hear their names. It's a great article. Patrick Sang's mother was Eliud Kipchoge's teacher. Finding out all these things. I think I got that right, or maybe Kipchoge's. Anyway, it's got a lot of details in here, and just one, you get an impression of how much Kipchoge just loves running. When I run, I feel good. My mind feels good. I sleep in a freeway, and I enjoy life. I mean, this guy is like the ultimate runner, and I think Breaking 2 hopefully got him some exposure to some new people out there, at least sort of even the casual running sports fan who may not watch Berlin unless you break the world record and not hear about it.
Do you think Kevin Hart remembers his name?
Yeah. Oh. That's what doomed him. Right when Kevin Hart said he's getting the world record, it was actually when he totally fell off. And hopefully you guys also have checked out the letsrun.com running pro salary survey. They say Kipchoge makes, or Galen Rupp makes about 50% more than Eliud Kipchoge, which is crazy. But also that Kipchoge makes less than Bekele in his peak. Shouldn't be the case. But it should be a great one on Sunday. But let's turn to the women's field, and we've got 4 women under 220 in the field. Yet we have a huge favorite as well in that race, Chernish Tababa.
Yeah. And it's interesting, I was talking with you and Let's Run co-founder Robert Johnson this afternoon. We were sort of figuring out what we were going to do for this podcast, and I was like, I'm kind of curious why Tababa is running Berlin. She's the defending champion in Chicago, and in World Marathon Majors, the champ usually defends. You get a pretty nice payday from the organizers to have the defending champion come back. And so I called up her agent, Mark Wetmore, and he basically told me, like, yeah, she had a great time in Chicago last year. She really liked the race. That's her only marathon victory, actually, is in Chicago. But she wanted to test herself on Berlin, and she said that Haile Gebrselassie told her, this is the place to run fast, and Geb would know because he broke the world record on that course twice. They have pretty similar track resumes, actually. They're both, two of the best ever on the track. And I think essentially she was looking at the calendar. She wants to do the Olympics in 2020 next year. She might try to do the World Championships, which would be like right around the same time as Berlin. She's not entirely sure. So she kind of figured, like, this is the time. If I'm going to try to run she wants to see what her fastest possible race is, and she thinks she could get close to the world record. So she's like, now is the time to go for it. So that's what she's doing. She Wetmore said that she wants to go out close to the world, basically wants to go out on world record pace, or maybe a little bit behind, so she can try to negative split it. And she's going to have one male pacer. I don't think anyone else in this field is good enough to try to follow. I think if you're trying to run, 68 minutes for the first half of the race or faster, I just don't think anyone else is good enough to do it. And we saw it in London earlier this year when Dibaba and Mary Keitany were the only two to go. You had a studly field, so many good runners, Vivian Chariot in there as well. None of them decided to go with those two because it was just too fast, and it ultimately was too fast for both of them as well. The good news is, I think this time it feels like Dibaba is the one sort of dictating it. Like in the past, it was Keitany's going to try to go for the world record, and Dibaba is someone who had run 2:17 in London in 2017. She sort of, I think, I got the sense at least that she sort of felt like she had to go with it. She had to. The year before, she'd been caught by surprise, and runners, when they're this good, they don't want to lose to anyone. I remember hearing about Bekele. It's like, no matter what kind of shape Bekele was in, he was just going to go with the leaders in a marathon because, like, he's Bekele, and that's just like, he's not going to let other people drop in. You saw it with Mo Farah earlier this year in London as well. And so, I think Dibaba just sort of felt like she had to go with it, even though, it didn't end up working. She was off the pace by 10 miles. She dropped out of the race. This time around, she's the one who's dictating it. She's the one who's putting the goal out there to run really, really fast. So I think that helps, having that comfort level. And then, having the male pacer as well will help. I think she could be in for something really, really fast. As we already said, the conditions are good. I don't think she's going to get the world record. 2:15:25 is just a ridiculous time, and no one's come close to it. But I think a couple things working in Dibaba's favor. One, when she ran 2:17:56 in London last year, she did that while costing herself like at least 20 seconds by like stopping a dry heave with a couple miles to go. So assuming she has no fueling problems, you can knock off some time right there, and then say she's in a little bit better shape. Maybe she could go sub 2:17. I wouldn't be like totally shocked by that, but like, I don't know, the world record itself it's just so fast. But I guess the one other thing I will say is, like, sometimes in women's running, we just see these performances that they go so much faster than you ever thought possible. And like Ayana at the 2016 Olympics, the world record was 29:31. No one was talking about it, and then she comes in and runs 29:17. Beatrice Chepkoech in Monaco this year, world record is 8:52. She comes in and runs 8:44. So like, sometimes there are just these things that happen in a time that you have no context for, and it comes out and someone runs it. So maybe that could happen, but I guess I'm betting against it.
Yeah, and you're saying one of the best track runners. I think she's the best track runner ever, right?
I would give her that title for sure.
And if she could get the world record in the marathon, it would be incredible. I mean, last week at the Fifth Avenue Mile, I saw Olympic course measurer guru, whatever you want to call him, David Katz, and he's going to be, I think, in Copenhagen. And he was, saying, he's like, oh, all three world records could go. He wasn't even, mentioning the possibility of the women's, because Paula Radcliffe's 2:15:25 is just so out there, and it's been on the books 15 years now. Mm-hmm. So no one even thinks about it. But this new generation, I mean, it's not a new generation of runners, but sort of there's a new outlook with the African talent, and they're not afraid to sort of go out there at ridiculously fast paces and, at least run that pace for part of the race. So, as in London, we showed they went too fast. The key is to do it smart, and it sounds like Tierney she's been very calculated in targeting these races, giving up the London sort of, not payday, but you're going to get more of an appearance if you go back to defend your title. So she clearly thinks she can do something special on Sunday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be exciting. I mean, you've got some good women behind her. Gladys Toronto is the defending champion. She's won Berlin twice. She's run 2:19:25. Estelle Felix Murgia has also run under 220, though she hasn't been in quite as consistently great form recently. And then you got Edna Kiplagat. It's kind of, it's kind of crazy to me that Edna is deciding to run this race. She's excelled in sort of champion. Not that she's a slow runner by any means. She's run 2:19.50, albeit that's from 2012. But she's excelled in championship races. She was silver at Worlds last year. She won Boston. She's won the world title twice. It just feels like to me, and she's 38 years old. She turns 39 in November. To me, it feels like at this point in her career, it would make more sense to do a race like New York. Even with, Mary Keitany's very good and she'll be in that field most likely. But for Edna Kiplagat to win this race, she's going to have to run probably, assuming if Dababa runs like 2:16, obviously she has no chance. But if Dababa is sort of close to the pack, it would still probably take like a 2:19 low to win this race. And even in her prime, Kiplagat wasn't able to run faster than 2:19.50. So it's interesting to me that she's trying to do this, but she's run all the majors and she's finished in top 3 in all the majors except for Berlin. So it's kind of interesting. She's just giving this one a shot.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting. She's doing it because she's not a speed runner. She's 38, 36.
38.
And I don't know. Berlin, I feel like you can get exposed if you're 3 minutes behind somebody. But good for her. Maybe maybe there's some thing with all the majors that we don't know about that she wants to do, or just personal pride at this point. And she needs a good one. She was tremendous last year. She was almost world number 1. So interesting, John. Someone just randomly called in on the podcast. I'm glad they hung up.
I didn't know anyone else had this number. Well then.
It was a local number. They dialed the wrong number. Let's do Berlin predictions and we'll get to Copenhagen. So I'll go first for the women. I think Dabao wins it. I don't think she gets the world record. There's never been a woman in the 2:16s.
Right.
If I'm, we've had a 2:15.25. We've never had a 2:16. I'm going to be generous. I'm going to give her 2:16.20. We'll do 2:16.26. On the men's side, what's the weather again, John?
It's going to be high 50s, low 60s. Wind, I think, around 5 miles an hour. Partly cloudy.
So that's perfect weather. I love
pretty
sort of
close
going
to it.
against. I like to be against the grain and predict not the world record, but I think actually he will get it if that's the weather. I'm gonna go 2:0. I mean, how fast does he go out? I don't know. Let's go 2:02.38.
All right, my predictions. Oh man, I mean, I do think they could both run really fast, but I always err on the side of just something could go wrong. There could be some weird thing that happens. I think I'll say Dababa.
Dababa. I'm voting. I voted against the record. Now I'm saying publicly he will get the record.
Yeah, Dababa. I'll call like 2:17.30. That's still like a huge PR and number 3 all time. Which we're making it sound like a disappointment. That would be an epic marathon if she runs it. But I don't know. It's really hard to run fast. I wouldn't be surprised by 2:16 something, 2:15 something would shock me. Kipchoge 2:03.10. I think he wins. I think he misses the world record. I want to see him get it. And again, the weather is perfect. I don't think that's going to be an excuse. Or the weather's close to perfect, so I don't think it's going to be an excuse this time. But you need to run a great race too, and he always runs good races. Usually runs great races, but yeah, 2:03.10. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't know. I always kind of like last year. I didn't think he'd get the record. Over this week, I didn't think he'd get the record. And somehow now, I just said he would. I think because I got all excited from skimming the New York Times profile. But let's quickly, turn to Copenhagen. So pretty much right when Berlin finishes, just stay on Let's Run. And we're still finding out there's streaming of this race. but people will be talking about it for sure and giving live updates. The Copenhagen half marathon. Originally, this was sort of being billed as 2 world record attempts by men and women. The men's favorite, Eliud Kipchoge, has pulled out. So, the chance of a world record drops a little bit because he was the fastest guy in the field on the year, but it's still a tremendous race. And, you've got Abraham Cherubin, who's run 58:40. He was second at the World Half Marathon Champs. He's in the field. You've got a lot of, on the women's side, you have Joan Melly, sometimes seen as Joan Chalimo. She ran a crazy 65:04 half marathon, which is just off, the world record 64:51, and the record just keeps getting crushed. It's been broken 3 times in the last 2 years. So Joan ran 65:04, going out in 30:14. So if she just gets the pacing right, you think she'd have a good chance. And, there's 4 women under 67 minutes in the field. But both races have really interesting debuts from the Nike Oregon Project. Sifan Hassan and Yomi Kajelka both doing their half marathon debuts. Hassan's run a half before, but, never at this level, seriously. So these races should be phenomenal. And, it's the women's world records, following every other day here, it seems like. So that's the one that's most likely to go. The men's record, by Zersane Tedesse, 58:23. It's been around 8 years. What excites you most about this race, John? Or these races?
Well, I was gonna say Galen Rupp racing these guys, but you didn't mention it. Galen Rupp was supposed to run here. He's a scratch. He's had some Achilles soreness, is what his agent Ricky Sims told me was the reason why he scratched. So, I think that would have been awesome just see him, because he's always in pretty good shape before the marathons. But I would probably say the men's race. Just it's so many sub 60 guys. It's just kind of nuts. I'm also just a little more interested to see what Kajelcha can do in the half versus Sifan Hassan. I think both of them, it's kind of hard. They're probably just, this is sort of like when Mo Farah would do the Great North Run at the end of the year. It was just sort of like he was already kind of in shape and he would just do that, sort of for fun. Except even, I think these guys are even less prepared to run a half because they're sort of more focused. Kajelcha's like 3K, 5K. He doesn't run the 10K. Hassan, apparently Salazar wants to move up to the 5K and 10K, but she's, basically been running the 15.5 the last few years. So that's interesting. But yeah, I think the men just like, even though, Eric Kipchoge's not running it, I think get all these fast guys together, see how fast they can run. We could see some sub 59s. Maybe someone has a great day and, gets close to the world record or gets the world record. And, there's probably someone we haven't mentioned or someone we're not thinking of that will come out of the woodwork and run something crazy fast, because you were saying that earlier today, that just sort of tends to happen with some of these Kenyans, right?
Yeah, no, it's absolutely crazy. I mean, it's sort of doing some research on this race. I saw some discussion on Let's Run about Eric Kipchoge, and people were saying they're very disappointed he wasn't running. And I was like, I know nothing about this guy. So I started, doing a little research, and he's coached by Renato Canova, who posts on Let's Run. And 2 years ago, he's a 1,500-meter runner, sort of, nothing to speak of. And he had no international results in the international database that we look at. And moves up to the half, and next thing you know, he runs 58:42. I mean, it's crazy. And says, I'm going to target the world record. The guy's 28 years old. And you think, oh, well, that, with all the doping stuff in Kenya, people can be suspicious. But it's just amazing at how suited, even if these guys were on drugs, it's still amazing that some guy could do that in 2 years. I'm not saying he is by any stretch of imagination, because in looking at other guys in the field, there's a guy, Mingata Niduawa. He's run 59:07 for the half. He's 30 years old.
That name? Sorry, I didn't quite get it.
Mingata Ndiwa, Ndiwa. 30 years old. He's a 5K guy, 13:05 in 2009. That's great if you're an American. If you're a Kenyan, that doesn't cut it. He has no results for 6 years. Then he tries to become a 5K runner again in 2016, third in the African champs. Oh, he moves up to the half marathon last year, this year, 59:07, first half. He's in the field. I mean, if a guy like that, wouldn't shock me if he could drop a 58:30. He could do just what Kiptanui did. There's another guy, Joru Mokumbo, 58:48 best. I see no results for him until last year. And he ran 58:48 last year, first year of really serious professional running. I mean, it's just crazy. I think the half may be like the perfect distance for some of these guys born at altitude, how fast they can run. And it's just pretty crazy. A lot of these guys will run 59 minutes in their first half, first serious effort. And it's even sicker that some of these guys are doing it like, at age 25, 26, 27. I don't know what that means about what's going on in Kenya and stuff, but it can't just solely be drugs. There's just tons of guys like this with tons of talent. And I think this distance is perfect for them. But, as people say, people have been going after the men's half marathon record for 8 years now, and no one's really come that close. So I think for sure, for me, the record's not going down. It's supposed to be great weather in Copenhagen. I think the weather's going to be in the 50s. There's a chance for rain, but weather in the 50s, which is ideal. So I don't know. It should be a great one. And, there's any one of about 5 guys can do it. Kipchoge, it's fascinating, right? I mean, he just ran 12:45 for 5K. And he set up that race. He pushed the race. He hammered in the middle. That's 4:06 per mile. Now he's just got to run 4:27 for 13 miles.
Easy, right?
Yeah, I don't know which is easier. But we know he just did the 4:06. But he can't be entering this race, right, just to take it easy and, take it out, come in at 101. I mean, if Eric Kiptanui can run a 58:40, and I've never heard of him, could Kipchoge do better? Yes. Can he get the world record? I guess that conceivably means yes. Does he do it this race? History and logic and says no, but I'm really intrigued by him being in here.
Are you thinking he's going to go out with the leaders then?
Why else would he be in the race?
Hassan's not going to go out with the leaders. They said that she was going to try to run 69 or 70. I mean,
she can get a European record,
No, it doesn't. Pulla has the European record's pretty fast, right? Like, actually, no. Well, Lorna she's not even going to get the national record because Lorna Kipchoge has run, I think, in the 67s. So
yeah, actually, there's an article on the European Athletics website on Hassan and what records she can get. And I should.
Yeah, Lorna Kipchoge's run 66:25, which is the Dutch national record, was the world record at the time it was set. I mean,
so you don't think Hassan's going to go out and go for that?
No, I don't think she's going to come close to that. And I mean, Kipchoge, I don't know. I mean, the guy, he just ran 3:32 for 1500. Like, is he going to come out and run like sub 59 for the half? I feel like if he does that, that's one of the most impressive things in the history of running, to run those two performances like a month apart.
I don't know, John. I mean, I just Joycelyn Kipchoge. No one had ever heard of her. She set 7 world records in the roads last year, and now she's got the world half marathon record, 64:51. And just in my head, I think Sifan Hassan is such a better runner than her. But what these women are doing on the roads now is absolutely astounding. The mixed race world record's fallen 3 times in 2 years. The open record was broken this year, a women's only race at the world half by Netzanet Gudeta of Ethiopia. She was supposed to be in this race, but she's pulled out as well. So that really puts the focus on Joan Chelimo. Kind of same thing with her, sort of. She missed 2015 to have her daughter. Since then, she's come back. She's been a whole nother runner. 66.25 last year. She won the BAA 10K, John. I'm sure that got a lot of attention there with Boston Herald, Boston TV.
Oh, it's front page news. Yeah.
And then now the 65.04 this year in Prague, where she went out in 30:14. And you think that's crazy, but I mean, one, the women's world record's 4:56 pace, which is probably about a little under 31-minute pace. It's not that much faster. But when Kipchoge set a world record, she split a 30:05. So these women, they've taken it to a new level. And it's kind of interesting because the American women are very competitive in the marathon, and they're very competitive in the 1500, and they're really not competitive in anything else in between. But Jordan Hsay was supposed to be in this race. It would have been interesting to see what she could have done. She's made for the marathon, but she's been injured now for the last 6 months.
Well, she was injured. Do we know that? I mean, she was injured and had to pull out of Boston, but I haven't heard any status on her health or anything.
Oh, but I think if she was healthy, she would have gone, and maybe just a slight hiccup. I don't know. There's a lot of speculation she won't run Chicago, but Chicago is less than a month away. October 7th, I believe. Yep. Yes. So American distance fans get excited. So outside of Joan Melly, there's a few other runners who are pretty good in this field. Ruth Chipnagich, Ababel Barani. But John, the one I told you I'd put you on the spot on this call. We have Mary Wasera. She set the U.S. all-comers record at the time. It was 66:50 a few years ago at the Houston Half. She's won the Utica Boilermaker, the Boston 5K. She was recently third in Falmouth. So she's a name that, if you follow the American road scene, you're familiar with. But John, does that name do anything else to you? Mary Wasera. Now Mary Wasera Ngugi.
No, I mean, I just know her as a. I mean, I think she might have medaled at World Half a couple of years ago, but that's not what you're going to.
This was shocking to me, John.
Asking me about.
This is not a Let's Run exclusive. Showing the Let'sRun.com ignorance. She is the widow of Sammy Wanjiru.
No, really?
Yeah. Yes. What? Thank you, Wikipedia. And thank you.
Hold on. So wait, was she the one? There was all this drama about when he died, right? Between the widow and like the mistress and stuff. Like, was she caught up in this?
I didn't have time to look that up. I was so shocked by that, and I just thought it was really cool. And I can't believe that somehow we didn't know that. And that was one thing doing this podcast with the half. There's just all these names, and Mary Wasera's name is one I'm familiar with. Because she's been around a few years. She's not just a one-off flash in the pan, but at Let's Run, we try to...
Hold on. Now I'm on Wikipedia. It says his wife's name is Teresa and Jerry. Where'd you find this out?
It says, this is Wikipedia. She is a widow of Sammy Wanjiru and had a daughter with him in 2010.
Well, that's not what Sammy's Wikipedia page says. Oh wait, hold on. No, you're right. She married him. Oh, he had previously married Teresa and Jerry in a traditional ceremony and had 2 children, although Wanjiru and Wasera's marriage was legally binding. Oh, all right. Yeah, I think it was a kind of a complicated situation. Yeah, but yes, you're right.
We will get to the bottom of this next time.
Wait, hold on. Now it says Wanjiru also had a third wife, Judy Wambui, who was pregnant when he died and has had a son. This, I guess, it's just a different culture.
Yeah, and some of the stuff was there are all these stories the night he died that he was out drinking and woman problems, and there needs to be a 30 on 30 on this, and maybe in the off season we could look into it more. But there's so many great stories in our sport, and most of the world barely even knows about Eliud Kipchoge. So I'm glad to see him getting some publicity with the Breaking 2 New York Times profile. If he could somehow get the world record this weekend, he'll get even more publicity. But, he's just one of thousands, and they all have an interesting story. you know, and it just shows sort of, I feel like it shows how great the running world is. You know, I'm sure if you're into ping pong, you think the ping pong world is great as well, but running, it's pretty universal. If you've trained, you've done it, you've experienced on a lesser level what these guys and gals are doing. And I don't know. Hopefully, some of you guys are waking up at 3 a.m. Eastern time for Sunday's Berlin Marathon. John, we haven't decided, if we're all waking up, who's covering the race this weekend.
I'm doing it. I want to watch. I'm gonna do it.
I almost always just relocated to New York. I'm getting married in a month, so moved into the apartment with my fiance. So I may a lot of times if I'm tired, I'll wake up and watch the second half. But do you have any parting comments, John?
Not really. I mean, I just think Sunday is one of those. I know that people in the US will have to get up obnoxiously early or maybe stay up obnoxiously late, but I think it's one of those great days to be a running fan. You know, a lot of fit people are getting together and trying to run really fast, and it's going to be exciting to see who blows up, who can hold on, who gets what time, all that sort of stuff. I think that's one of the things that makes our sport great.
The Berlin Marathon is live on NBCSN in the United States. So if you have a DVR or the NBC Gold package, you don't have to wake up. You can watch it without knowing the results. But if you do that, you have to stay off letsrun.com for first part of the morning. So we'll forgive you if you do that. But until then, this is Weldon Johnson signing off. John, thanks for joining us.